I returned from a 2-week trip to find my entire life had been liquidated. The house key didn't fit. My custom welcome mat was gone, replaced by a generic one. My mother and sister were waiting in the driveway, their expressions a mix of triumph and nervous energy. "You're home early," my mother said, her voice too bright. I stared past her. The shutters were a different color. "Since when are the shutters gray?" My sister let out a short laugh, dangling a set of keys. "You're a little slow. You don't live here anymore." I stayed silent, just taking in the scene. They exchanged a look and chuckled, the sound tight and rehearsed. My mother folded her arms. "We had to sell. Your sister's financial situation was critical. You were away for too long." I nodded slowly. "And my opinion wasn't required?" My sister snorted. "Your opinion? You're the one who preaches about family loyalty. We were just following your lead." They were braced for an explosion, for tears, for rage. But I just smiled. A small, quiet, knowing smile. My sister's grin vanished. "What's that look for?" I glanced up at the second-floor window, the one I'd looked out of my entire childhood. "Nothing," I said. "It's just strangely fitting." She rolled her eyes. "Fitting? You have nowhere to go." "Maybe," I replied. "But answer me one thing. When did the sale officially close?" 3 days ago," my mother said, a hint of pride in her voice. "We got full asking price, all cash. The buyer's name was—" she started. "I know," I cut her off. "I suggested him." The smug satisfaction drained from their faces. This began 8 months ago, at a family dinner I now refer to as the Last Supper. My sister was sobbing over another mountain of debt. Bad business partners, reckless spending, a life of poor choices. My mother called her unfortunate. I called her careless. That was the moment I understood that unconditional love doesn't just blind you. It can poison you. I had bailed her out before. I told myself it was the final time. But a few weeks later, I spotted irregularities in my digital property files. Unfamiliar access attempts, strange document queries. My mother's email was all over the activity logs. At first, I dismissed it as coincidence. Then I discovered a draft email from my attorney that I never got, referencing a forged power of attorney document. That's when the last bit of familial warmth inside me turned to ice. I didn't say a word. I just watched. Months passed in calculated silence. I tracked their meetings, their calls, their hushed conspiracies. They thought I had become passive. That's the danger with family. Once they believe your forgiveness is guaranteed, they stop sheathing their claws. I moved in the shadows. I had already legally transferred the true property deed to a separate holding entity under a different name. The documents my mother had were sophisticated forgeries, but I made sure they pointed to a decoy asset. The house, on paper, appeared to be mine, but the legal property they had access to was a phantom title, the old registration from before my major renovations. The real current deed was tied to a different structure on the adjacent lot I'd acquired 2 years prior through a silent partner. Same street number, same neighborhood, but a completely different legal parcel. I ensured their forgery mirrored that obsolete description. They thought they were auctioning my home. In reality, they were selling an empty plot of land that my company already fully owned. My vacation wasn't for relaxation. It was the final phase. I let their scheme reach its conclusion. I needed the undeniable evidence, the forged signatures, the fraudulent transaction, the tax implications. When they mocked me on the driveway, I wasn't angry. I was waiting for the right question. "You recommended him?" my mother asked, her confidence cracking. "Yes," I said, pulling a crisp set of papers from my inner pocket, stamped with my corporate seal. "He's an associate at my development firm." My sister let out a shaky, disbelieving laugh. "You're lying." I handed her the top sheet. "See for yourself." Her eyes scanned the page, and the color left her cheeks. This This says the title was transferred over a year ago. I finished the thought for her. The property you sold doesn't exist as you know it. The sale was invalid. The buyer was a corporate entity I control. The money you received is already flagged. My mother's hands began to shake. You wouldn't dare. I didn't have to, I stated, my voice flat and cold. The evidence will. They stood there utterly paralyzed. I took a step closer, my tone dropping to a whisper. You falsified my signature, conspired to steal my home, taunted me on my own property, and you assumed I'd return broken and pleading. I took out my phone, opened an audio file, and pressed play. Their own voices echoed in the space between us, a clear recording from their final planning session. He'll be devastated. Let him suffer. My sister's eyes went wide with horror. You recorded us? A heavy silence fell, broken only by the distant sound of traffic. I submitted the full case to the authorities this morning, I said. Forgery, conspiracy to commit fraud. But this isn't about vengeance. This is a public service, so the next person you try to destroy will see the warning signs. My mother's voice was a fragile whisper. You can't do this to your own blood. I took one last look at the house I grew up in. You did it to yourselves. Later that afternoon, the police arrived. I didn't watch the arrests. I didn't need to. My actual home, the real one, was just next door. An identical design, the same porch, but untainted by their betrayal. I turned the key and walked inside, enveloped by the silence. I wasn't smiling anymore. I didn't need to. Some betrayals are too deep for money to fix, but the law settles accounts with perfect clarity. Before you go, if this story of calculated justice resonated with you, please support our channel by hitting the like button and make sure you're subscribed to Wines of Thought. Not all debts are financial. Some are paid in consequences.